Hi boys and girls, welcome to Granny's Story Time. And Mr. Bear has the title to today's story. It's called A Wall Falls Down. Imagine a wall falling down. Oh no, what could this story be about? We'll find out, okay? First, let's do a thumbnail. The wall falls down. Okay. So Bear is back. Did you miss him? Okay, Bear is gonna sit right there, and we're gonna read the story called "A Wall Falls Down." Okay. Okay. Let's see where we are. A wall falls down. God gave His people a new leader. His name was Joshua. You know, Moses led the people out of Egypt, the Israelites out of Egypt, right? And many times they didn't listen to God, so they had to wander around in the desert for 40 years. That's what happens when you don't obey. And after Moses died, God set up a new leader, and his name was Joshua. He led God's people to the new land that God had promised to give him. The first city they came to was Jericho. The first city they came to was Jericho, and it had a big wall around it. Who's calling? Joshua sent 2 men to Jericho to see what it was like. Joshua looks pretty old, doesn't he? They were in the desert for so long, they all became old. The king of Jericho found out that the men were in his city, and he wanted to catch them. But they went to the house of a lady named Rahab. She hid them on her roof. The king's men could not find them there. So there was a lady by the name of Rahab, and Joshua's 2 men who were supposed to go out there to see if the land was good or not, she hid them on the roof. So when the soldiers came and were looking for the Israelites, they couldn't find any because she hid them, right? She was a good helper. Rahab's house was part of the city wall. So when it was night, she let the 2 men down through her window by a rope. They promised that they would help her later since she helped them. Do you guys help somebody and then later on, because you helped them, they helped you back? Yeah, that's what happens. If you share love with somebody, they're gonna give that love back to you, right? So be nice to everybody. If someone needs help, go help them, okay? The city of Jericho was strong, but God told Joshua how to take it. He marched his army around the city 1 time each day for 6 days. The next day, they marched around the city 7 times. So Joshua and his men just marched around the city wall because God was going to give that land to them. God was going to help them take the land from the people. The priests blew their trumpets. The people shouted, and the walls around Jericho fell down. The 2 men ran back to Rahab's house. They helped her get out of the city safely. Then Rahab and her family lived with God's people. So God had a plan with the Israelites walking around the wall, the Jericho wall, right? And God said, on the 7th time, after you walk 7 times, I want you to scream, yell, and blow the trumpet, and then the walls are going to come down, and then you could attack and take the city. So that's what happened. God's people walked around 7 times, and the priests, they're like the pastors right now. They blew the trumpet sound. They blew the horn, and everybody screamed and yelled, and then the walls, made out of like heavy brick type of material, it just fell. But then Joshua remembered the lady who helped them, right? Who helped the 2 spies when Joshua was looking. Anyway, he remembered her, went to her and said, come on, you have to escape or you're going to die in this city. So Rahab and her family, they were spared. They came out alive, and then they lived with God's people. Okay? And after God's people moved into the new land, many enemies came to fight them. In those days, if somebody wants to take your country, they would just come and fight you. And if you lost, you would just have to give it to them. And God chose a man named Gideon to lead his people. God said, "You will help save my people." Gideon set a bundle of wool on the ground. He said, "If what you say is true, then in the morning let the wool be wet with dew, but let the ground be dry." And it happened just as Gideon said. So Gideon wanted a sign from God to let him know that God was using him as a leader for the Israelites. And that was after Joshua. Then Gideon said, "God, don't be angry, but if I will really save your people, then in the morning let the wool be dry, and let the ground be wet." And it happened again, just as Gideon had asked. So Gideon chose an army. So he finally got it. He prayed, "God, let the wool be wet and let the ground be dry." And it happened that way. And he prayed the opposite. "Let the wool be dry and let the ground be wet." And that also happened too. So God showed Gideon, signs that God was really serious and he wanted to use Gideon. So Gideon chose an army. Thousands of men were in his army, but God sent away many of them back home. Finally, Gideon only had 300 men. Oh, Gideon had only 300 men left. Yeah. So everybody else, he had thousands at first, but everybody left and only 300 were there. And compared to the enemy soldiers, 300 is not very many. And we would think that the group that had the more men would win, right? But with God, it doesn't happen that way. Even though you're a small number, even though you have a little bit, if God helps you, you can beat the many. Then God told Gideon how to win the fight without even fighting. This is what he did. Late that night, each man took a torch, an empty clay jar, and a trumpet. They covered the torches with the jars. They all crept to the edge of the enemy camp. When Gideon gave the signal, all his men blew their trumpets and smashed their jars. This scared the enemies so much that they ran away. God's people won even without fighting. So they got jars and torches, and in the middle of the night, imagine how scary it would sound if there was glass breaking in the middle of the night and people screaming. That would be really scary, right? So they did that in the middle of the night. And so the enemy soldiers, they got so scared, instead of fighting, they just ran away. So Gideon and his men could take over the land. That's how God helps. When you ask God for his help, he will help you, even today. So we'll end the story today. And I want to shout out a young boy, okay? His name is Harrison. Hi, Harrison. Are you 4 years old? Your mommy or daddy told me that you're 4 years old. And you worried that you thought Granny was in jail because of the wall. No, this is just the backdrop, okay? This is just a piece of like a wall that Granny needs to cover up the backside. So she's not in jail, okay? She's at home. Just like you're in your home, Granny is in her home, okay? So don't feel bad and don't worry. I'm safe and I hope you're safe too, okay? Be a good little boy and listen to your mommy and daddy and pray. Pray to God for help. Always pray when you eat. Always pray when you need help. God will hear you, okay? And don't follow other people when they do bad things. When other girls or boys try to do bad things, you tell them no. God is not going to like it. And you tell them, okay? And you tell them to do the right thing and to love everybody and be friends with everybody and don't fight with them, okay? All right. Harrison, be a good boy, okay? And thank you for listening to Granny's story time, okay? Okay. Come again next time, okay? Bye. Remember, boys and girls, God loves you, Granny loves you, and Mr. Bear loves you. Okay. Okay. So come back again next time. Okay. Bear, you wanna sign us out? Okay. Bye. Bear is gonna shut the video off, okay?